You are sitting inside the lander on Mercury's surface, and through the small window to your right, you can see grey regolith extending toward a horizon that curves more noticeably than it would on Earth. The black sky above shows stars even though the sun blazes somewhere to your left, creating the strange daylight with stars effect that only happens on airless worlds. The engines shut down 30 seconds ago, and the vibration that accompanied the descent has stopped completely, leaving a silence that feels profound after the noise of landing. Your suit systems hum quietly in your ears, and the displays inside your helmet show green indicators across all critical functions, confirming that you are sealed, protected, and ready to step outside. The lander settled onto the surface with a gentle bump, and the shock absorbers in the landing legs compressed and then stabilized, holding the craft level on what appears to be relatively flat terrain. Through the window, you can see one of the landing legs extending down to where it meets the surface, and a small cloud of dust that was kicked up during touchdown has already settled back to the ground. The dust settled quickly because there is no atmosphere to keep it suspended, and the surface already looks undisturbed except for the footpad impression and the faint scattering of regolith around it. You have landed on Mercury, the innermost planet, and in a moment you will open the hatch and become the first person to walk this ancient ground. You are listening to the Drowsy Astronaut, and tonight we are going on a slow and unhurried exploration of Mercury's surface as you step outside and begin the work of establishing humanity's first permanent campsite on this world. Your first steps take you across the regolith, and from there the work begins, deploying the habitat, arranging the equipment, and preparing this harsh stretch of Mercury for the cruise that will follow. If you are still awake later, feel free to share in the comments where you are listening from. And if you enjoy these journeys, a like or subscription helps us keep making them. Now let's return to the lander and prepare to step out onto Mercury's surface for the first time. You reach forward and press the control that initiates the hatch opening sequence, and a series of mechanical sounds travels through the lander's structure as locks disengage and the outer door begins to swing outward. The hatch moves slowly on its heavy hinges, and as it opens, you see more of the landscape beyond. Grey terrain, the black sky, the brilliant sunlight creating sharp shadows with no softening from atmospheric scattering. The environmental systems in your suit adjust automatically as the cabin depressurizes, though the pressure change is minimal because you have been in your suit throughout the landing sequence. The interior of the lander reaches equilibrium with the outside, which means perfect vacuum, and you are now breathing only the oxygen supplied by your suit's life support system. Standing up from the seat takes a moment of adjustment, and you move carefully in the bulky suit that protects you from the temperature extremes and radiation that would kill an unprotected human in seconds. The suit is heavy on Earth, but here on Mercury's surface, it feels lighter because the gravity is only 38% of what you are accustomed to. You move toward the open hatch, and each step feels different from walking on Earth, a lightness that will take some time to get used to. The hatch opening is just wide enough to fit through in the suit, and you pause at the threshold to look out at the terrain you are about to step onto. The ground is perhaps 2 meters below the hatch, because the lander stands on extended legs that kept the engines high enough during descent to avoid blasting too much regolith around. A ladder extends down from the hatch to the surface, its metal rungs gleaming in the harsh sunlight. You reach for the ladder and grasp it carefully with your gloved hands, and the gloves are thick enough that you cannot feel the metal through them, but the grip is secure. Turning around so your back is to the landscape, you find the first rung with your boot and begin descending step by step toward the surface. The descent takes only a few seconds because there are just 5 rungs on the ladder, and each step downward brings you closer to the grey regolith that covers Mercury's surface. Your boots are designed with thick soles that will insulate your feet from the extreme ground temperature, and the outer material is tough enough to resist the abrasive dust that coats everything on airless worlds. Reaching the bottom rung, you pause for a moment, and your right boot still rests on the ladder, while your left foot hovers above the regolith that has never been touched by human presence. Then you step down, and your boot sinks slightly into the surface. The regolith compresses under your weight, and your boot sinks maybe 2 or 3 centimeters into the fine grey powder before reaching firmer material underneath. The texture resembles what you have seen in videos from the moon, though the color is slightly different, more brownish grey than the pure grey of lunar regolith. You shift your weight fully onto your left foot and then bring your right boot down to stand on both feet, and the ground feels solid despite the thin layer of loose material on top. Looking down, you see your boot prints clearly impressed into the surface, and the patterns from your boot treads show in sharp detail in the compacted dust. The silence is complete, except for the quiet hum of your suit systems and your own breathing, which sounds loud inside the helmet. You take a few steps away from the ladder, and each step creates a clear print in the regolith, and the low gravity makes walking feel strange because you rise higher and take longer to come down with each step. The ground around the lander shows disturbance from the landing, and a faint pattern of radial streaks extends outward where the engine exhaust pushed dust away during the final moments of descent. The area is relatively flat, which is why this site was chosen for landing, and the terrain extends in all directions without major obstacles visible in the immediate vicinity. Turning slowly in a complete circle, you survey the landscape that surrounds the lander in every direction. The horizon is closer than it would be on Earth, and it curves more sharply because Mercury is smaller than Earth. With a diameter of about 4,879 kilometers compared to Earth's 12,742 kilometers. The smaller diameter means the horizon is only about 3 kilometers away at your eye level, compared to about 5 kilometers on Earth, and this creates the feeling of standing on a smaller world. The curvature is noticeable if you pay attention, and the terrain seems to drop away more quickly than your Earth-trained eyes expect. The landscape is grey and brown, with subtle color variations that indicate different mineral compositions or different ages of surface exposure. Some areas appear darker than others, and some show a slightly reddish or tan tint, while the general impression is of a monochrome world without the vibrant colors that vegetation and water provide on Earth. The surface is not perfectly smooth, but shows gentle undulations and occasional rocks scattered across the regolith. and in the distance, you can see what appears to be the rim of a crater rising slightly above the surrounding terrain. The sky is perfectly black above you, and stars are visible in all directions except near the sun, which is too bright to look toward directly, even with your visor's protective filters partially engaged. The sun hangs in the black sky to your left, and even without looking directly at it, you can sense its brilliance and the harsh quality of the light it provides. The sunlight here is more intense than on Earth because Mercury orbits closer to the Sun at an average distance of about 58 million kilometers compared to Earth's 150 million kilometers. This closer distance means the Sun appears larger in the sky, about 2.5 times the diameter it shows from Earth, and the solar radiation is about 7 times more intense. Your suit's thermal systems are working constantly to keep you at a comfortable temperature despite the extreme conditions outside, where the sunlit regolith temperature is approaching 430 degrees Celsius. Looking at the lander behind you, you see it standing on its 4 extended legs, the white and silver exterior reflecting the brilliant sunlight. The craft is about 5 meters tall, from landing pads to the top of the communications antenna, and it is roughly 3 meters wide at the base, where the legs extend outward for stability. One of the cargo bays on the side of the lander is still closed, and it contains the equipment you will need for establishing the campsite, including the habitat module and the scientific instruments. The lander will remain here as a landmark and emergency shelter, and it will also serve as a communications relay to the orbiter that circles Mercury overhead. The surface beneath your boots feels firm now that you have been standing on it for a few moments, and the regolith has compressed under your weight into a stable footing. Walking a few more steps away from the lander, you test your movement in the reduced gravity, and you find that a normal walking pace launches you too high and makes your steps awkward. Adjusting to a slower, more deliberate stride helps you maintain control, and each step becomes a small push that lifts you and then sets you down gently as you learn the rhythm of walking in 0.38 times Earth's gravity. The regolith crunches very faintly under your boots, though you cannot hear it through the vacuum, and you can see small puffs of dust that your steps kick up and which fall immediately back to the surface without hanging in the air. After walking about 10 meters from the lander, you stop and look around again at the terrain that will be your workspace for the next several hours or days, depending on how long the mission requires. The ground shows gentle variations in texture, with some patches appearing smoother and others showing more rocks and irregularities. Small rocks, ranging from pebble size to the size of your fist, are scattered across the surface, and they rest on top of the regolith or partially embedded in it. The rocks are angular rather than rounded, and they show no signs of the smoothing that water or wind would create, because Mercury has neither. These rocks have been shaped only by the slow process of thermal expansion and contraction over billions of years, and by occasional impacts from micrometeorites. Looking toward the horizon in the direction away from the lander, you see the terrain extending for perhaps 1 kilometer or more, before rising slightly toward what might be the rim of a crater or a low ridge. The distance is difficult to judge without familiar reference points, and the sharp clarity of the airless environment makes everything appear closer than it actually is. The horizon itself shows the gentle curve of Mercury's surface against the black sky. And above the horizon, you can see stars shining steadily without the twinkling that Earth's atmosphere creates. The stars appear as brilliant points against the absolute blackness, and the Milky Way is visible as a faint band stretching across part of the sky away from the sun's position. You decide to walk further from the lander to get a better sense of the terrain, and you set out across the regolith with a slow and deliberate pace that helps you maintain balance in the reduced gravity. Each step you take is a small push against the ground, and you rise higher than you would on Earth and take longer to come down, creating a rhythm that feels like a gentle bounce with each stride. The regolith beneath your boots compresses slightly and then holds firm, providing enough traction for stable walking despite the powdery surface layer. Your boot prints trail behind you in a clear line, and each print shows the detailed pattern of your boot tread, pressed sharply into the dust. Walking in a gradually widening spiral pattern, away from the lander allows you to survey the terrain systematically, and you cover perhaps 50 meters in the first few minutes of walking. The surface texture varies subtly as you walk, with some areas showing fine dust and others revealing more rocky material or harder compacted regolith. Small rocks become more common as you move farther from the landing site, and they range in size from tiny fragments to pieces the size of your hand. The rocks rest on the surface or sit partially buried in the regolith, and they appear in random distribution without any pattern that would indicate water flow or wind deposition. Looking back toward the lander, you see it standing in the distance with the black sky behind it, and the craft appears small against the emptiness of the landscape. Your trail of boot prints extends from the lander to your current position in a curved line that shows exactly the path you have walked. The prints will remain here for an enormous span of time because there is no wind to erase them and no rain to wash them away. Estimates suggest that footprints on Mercury could last millions of years before micrometeorite impacts, and the slow process of regolith turnover gradually erode them. Though the time scale is so long that your prints might outlast human civilization on Earth. Continuing your walk, you begin to notice that the terrain is not as flat as it appeared from the lander, and the ground shows gentle undulations that were not obvious from your landing position. The surface rises slightly in some areas and dips in others, creating shallow slopes that are barely noticeable when you look at them, but which you can feel as you walk. The slopes are mild enough that walking remains easy, and you adjust your pace slightly when going uphill or downhill to maintain stable footing. The horizon shifts slightly as you walk across the undulating terrain, and features that were hidden behind gentle rises become visible as you crest each low hill. After walking for about 10 minutes, you come across a small crater that was not visible from the landing site, and the crater appears as a shallow depression about 5 meters across. The crater is old enough that its rim is subdued and partly filled with regolith, creating a gentle bowl shape rather than the sharp-edged crater that a recent impact would leave. Walking to the edge of the crater, you look down into its interior, and you see that the floor is slightly darker than the surrounding terrain and contains several rocks that may have been ejected during the impact that formed this feature. The crater is one of countless millions that cover Mercury's surface, accumulated over billions of years of bombardment by asteroids and comets. Turning to your right, you walk parallel to the crater rim for a short distance, and then continue outward from the lander in a new direction. The regolith here shows more variation in color, with patches of lighter gray material adjacent to areas that appear darker and more brownish. The color variations likely reflect different mineral compositions or different degrees of space weathering, which is the process by which solar wind particles and micrometeorite impacts alter the surface properties of rocks and dust. The darker material might contain more iron, which oxidizes over time when exposed to solar wind, while the lighter material might be fresher regolith that has been brought to the surface by more recent impacts. Small rocks scattered across the surface ahead of you show angular shapes with flat faces and sharp edges, indicating that they have not been subject to the rounding effects of water or wind. The rocks range in color from light gray to dark brown, and some show a glassy coating on one side where impact heat or solar radiation has melted the surface layer. Picking your way between the rocks requires care, because tripping in the bulky suit could be dangerous, even in the low gravity. You step over larger rocks and walk around obstacles, and your pace remains slow and deliberate as you navigate the increasingly rocky terrain. Looking ahead, you see that the ground begins to slope gently downward into a shallow depression that extends across the landscape for perhaps 100 meters. The depression might be part of a very old and degraded crater, or it might be a natural low area created by lava flows during Mercury's ancient volcanic period. Walking down the slope into the depression, you notice that the regolith appears deeper here, and your boots sink slightly more with each step than they did on the higher ground. The deeper regolith creates a softer surface that requires more effort to walk through, though the low gravity makes the extra effort minimal. The bottom of the depression shows fewer rocks than the surrounding terrain, and the surface is smoother and more uniformly covered with fine dust. You pause here and kneel down carefully to look more closely at the regolith, and you can see that it is composed of fine particles that resemble powder, though the vacuum prevents you from seeing any dust clouds when you disturb it with your gloved hand. The regolith particles are grey to brown and appear to range in size from fine powder to grains about the size of sand, and they compress under pressure but do not stick together the way moist earth soil would. This regolith has been created over billions of years by the continuous bombardment of micrometeorites that pulverize the surface rocks into progressively finer particles. Standing again, you continue walking across the depression toward the rising ground on the far side, and you notice that your shadow is very sharp and dark on the regolith beside you. The shadow is completely black in the airless environment because there is no atmospheric scattering to soften the edges or create any twilight in the shadowed areas. The sharp contrast between sunlit areas and shadow creates a stark visual effect, and you can see details clearly in the sunlight, while shadowed regions appear as pure darkness unless illuminated by reflected light from nearby surfaces. Your shadow extends several meters across the ground, and its length indicates the sun's position relatively low in the sky from your current perspective. Reaching the far side of the depression, You walk up the gentle slope onto higher ground, and the terrain here shows more exposed rock and less loose regolith covering the surface. The rock is fractured and broken into angular pieces, and in some areas, you can see what appears to be bedrock exposed, where the regolith layer is thin. The bedrock shows cracks and fractures that run in various directions, created by the extreme temperature changes that occur between Mercury's day and night. The temperature variation can exceed 600 degrees Celsius between the sunlit and shadowed sides, and this thermal cycling causes the rock to expand and contract repeatedly, eventually creating stress fractures that break it apart. Looking around from this slightly elevated position, you can see the lander in the distance behind you, perhaps 200 meters away now. The craft is small, but still clearly visible against the dark sky, and the trail of your boot prints shows as a faint line across the regolith, marking your path from the landing site to this location. Ahead of you, the terrain continues with similar characteristics, showing gentle slopes, scattered rocks, and the occasional small crater, and the horizon remains close due to Mercury's small size. You have been walking for about 20 minutes, and the exercise has helped you adjust to the movement in reduced gravity, and your stride now feels more natural as you have learned to compensate for the different weight. Deciding to begin a wide arc that will eventually take you back toward the lander, you turn to your left and start walking parallel to the direction you came from, but on a different path. The terrain here shows a slight rise, leading to a low ridge that runs across the landscape for several hundred meters before disappearing into the distance. Walking toward the ridge, you maintain a steady pace that keeps your breathing easy and your suit's life support systems operating well within their designed parameters. The displays inside your helmet show oxygen levels, battery charge, and thermal system status, all in the green range, confirming that you can continue working outside for several more hours without concern. Reaching the top of the low ridge, you stop and turn slowly to survey the surrounding terrain from this vantage point, about 10 meters higher than the general ground level. The view from the ridge reveals more of the landscape extending in all directions, and you can see several more crater rims in the distance, and an area that appears smoother and might be suitable for the campsite location. The lander is visible as a small white shape against the grey terrain, and the landing site appears flat and stable from this higher perspective. Beyond the lander, the terrain continues with the same generally level character, but showing the usual scattered rocks and gentle undulations that characterize this region. The search for a suitable campsite location requires finding an area that is flat enough for the habitat module to rest securely, close enough to the lander for convenient access, and free of large rocks that would interfere with the foundation anchors. The ridge you are standing on is too high and slopes too much to be suitable, but the area visible beyond it toward the left looks promising. Walking down the far side of the ridge, you head toward that flatter area, and your boot prints continue to mark your path across the regolith. The exploration walk has taken you about 300 meters from the lander in a looping path that has given you a good sense of the terrain characteristics and the challenges of working in this environment. Walking down the far slope of the ridge, you head toward an area that appears notably flatter than the terrain you have crossed so far, and the surface ahead shows fewer rocks, and a more uniform covering of regolith. The slope is gentle enough that walking down requires only minor adjustment to your pace, and you descend perhaps 8 or 10 meters of elevation over a distance of about 50 meters. The regolith remains consistent in texture, and your boots continue to leave clear prints with each step. Reaching the bottom of the slope, you find yourself in a broad, flat area that extends for at least 100 meters in several directions. This flat area looks promising for the campsite location, and you walk slowly across it while examining the ground for any features that might make it unsuitable. The surface is level to within a few degrees of slope, which is well within the acceptable range for the habitat foundation. The regolith depth appears consistent based on how your boots sink with each step, indicating that there are no hidden voids or unstable areas beneath the surface layer. Scattered small rocks are present, but not in sufficient numbers to create obstacles, and most could be easily moved aside if necessary to clear space for the equipment. Walking in a large circle to pace out the dimensions of this flat area, you estimate it to be roughly circular or slightly oval, with a diameter of about 150 meters. The size is more than adequate for the planned campsite, which requires only about 50 meters across to accommodate the habitat, solar arrays, scientific instruments, and storage areas. The location is about 400 meters from the lander, following the path you have walked, though the straight line distance is probably closer to 300 meters. This distance is far enough to provide some separation, but close enough that walking between the two sites will be practical, even in the bulky suits. Stopping near what appears to be the center of the flat area, you activate the terrain mapping function on your suit's navigation system, and the system uses laser ranging to measure the ground slope and create a detailed topographic map. The data appears on one of your helmet displays, showing the surrounding terrain in three-dimensional wireframe, with color coding to indicate slope angles. The flat area you are standing in shows mostly green coloring, which indicates acceptable slopes of less than 5 degrees. And only a few small patches of yellow show slightly steeper angles that are still within safe limits. The system confirms what your eyes have already suggested, that this location meets the requirements for the campsite. Looking around from this position, you notice a crater rim to the east that rises perhaps 20 meters above the general terrain level. And the rim is far enough away that it poses no risk, but close enough to serve as a useful landmark. The crater itself is probably a few hundred meters in diameter based on the arc of the visible rim, and it is clearly very old because the rim is rounded and partially degraded rather than sharp and fresh. Having this landmark nearby will help with navigation when future crews arrive, and the rim should be visible from quite far away due to its elevation above the surrounding terrain. To the west of the flat area, the terrain rises gradually toward another low ridge similar to the one you descended earlier, and the ridge is about 300 meters away. The northern and southern directions show gently rolling terrain with no major features visible, and the horizon in all directions is the characteristic close curve of Mercury's surface. The sun is still high in the sky from your current position, and the intense sunlight creates sharp shadows and brilliant highlights on every surface. The solar angle will be important for positioning the solar arrays that will provide power to the habitat, And this flat area appears to have good sun exposure without nearby features that would cast shadows during different parts of Mercury's long day. Checking your suit systems, you confirm that the ground-penetrating radar is functioning and ready to scan the subsurface, and you activate it to check for any hidden voids or unstable layers beneath the regolith. The radar sends pulses into the ground and measures the reflections to create an image of the subsurface structure. The scan takes about 2 minutes to complete as you stand still and allow the system to gather data from multiple angles. The results appear on your display, showing the subsurface down to a depth of about 5 meters, and the image reveals a fairly uniform structure with no large voids or weak zones that would concern you. The subsurface scan shows that the regolith layer extends down about 1 to 2 meters before reaching more solid material that is probably fractured bedrock. The bedrock appears stable and continuous, without any cracks large enough to show on the scan, and the overall structure looks suitable for anchoring the habitat foundation. The foundation anchors are designed to drill down about 3 meters, and they will need to penetrate both the regolith layer and into the bedrock beneath to provide adequate stability against any seismic activity or thermal stress that might affect the structure. Mercury does experience occasional quakes as the planet continues to cool and contract slightly, though the frequency and intensity are much lower than on Earth. Satisfied that this location meets the technical requirements for the campsite, you begin to consider the practical aspects of the site layout and how the various components will be positioned. The habitat will occupy the central area where you are currently standing, and it will be oriented to face south toward the distant crater rim for navigation reference. The solar arrays will be positioned to the east and west of the habitat to maximize sun exposure throughout the long Mercurian day. The scientific instrument cluster will go north of the habitat, where it will be away from regular foot traffic, but still easily accessible for maintenance. The storage area and emergency supplies will be placed west of the habitat. Again, away from the main work areas, but convenient to reach. Walking slowly through the area where each component will be placed, you use your suit's positioning system to mark the exact coordinates for each location, and the markers are stored in the navigation database for later reference. The habitat center point is marked first, and then you pace off the distances to each of the other locations and mark them as well. The markers appear on your helmet display as colored symbols overlaid on the real landscape, and they will help guide the equipment placement when you return with the cargo from the lander. The precision of the positioning system is accurate to within a few centimeters, which will ensure that the components are placed correctly relative to each other. Standing at the marked center point, where the habitat will be positioned, you reach into one of the tool pouches on your suit and retrieve a small marker flag designed to be planted in the regolith. The flag is bright orange for visibility, and it is mounted on a thin metal pole about 1/2 meter long. You push the pole down into the regolith with firm pressure, and it slides through the dust and into the harder material beneath, stopping when about 10 centimeters of pole remains above the surface. The flag stands upright, and the bright orange material contrasts sharply with the grey regolith, making it clearly visible from quite far away. This marker will help you locate the exact center point when you return with the equipment. Looking at the orange flag standing in the regolith, you can visualize the habitat that will soon occupy this spot, rising from the surface as humanity's first permanent structure on Mercury. The habitat will be a white dome, roughly 6 meters in diameter and 3 meters high at its center, designed to withstand the extreme temperatures and radiation that characterize this environment. Inside, future crews will have a pressurized living space with bunks, a work area, life support systems, and enough supplies to support several people for extended periods. The structure will be expandable, allowing additional modules to be attached as the mission requirements grow over time. Walking a slow circle around the center marker, you examine the ground one more time to ensure there are no issues you have missed, and everything appears satisfactory. The ground is level, the subsurface is stable, the location has good visibility and sun exposure, and it is conveniently positioned relative to the lander and the nearby landmarks. This flat area, marked now with a single orange flag, will become the foundation of humanity's presence on the innermost planet. The decision is made, and this is where the campsite will be established. Turning back toward the direction of the lander, you begin the walk back across the terrain you have already covered, following your own boot prints where they are visible. The return journey will be slightly faster because you are now familiar with the ground and confident in your movement in the reduced gravity. As you walk, you think about the next phase of the mission, which will involve returning to the lander, retrieving the habitat module and other equipment, and beginning the setup process. The work ahead will take several hours, but the location has been chosen, and the first critical decision of the mission is complete. The walk back to the lander takes about 15 minutes, and you follow the trail of boot prints that mark your outward journey across the regolith. The prints are still sharp and clear, despite the time that has passed, and they provide an easy path to follow across the undulating terrain. Reaching the lander, you approach the cargo bay where the habitat module and other equipment are stored, and you activate the bay door release system using the control panel mounted on the exterior of the craft. The door mechanism responds with a series of movements that you can see but cannot hear, and the large rectangular panel that forms the cargo bay door slowly lowers on its hinges until it rests horizontal, creating a ramp from the bay interior to the ground. Inside the cargo bay, secured with multiple restraining straps, is the habitat module in its compressed transport configuration. The module is a cylinder about 3 meters long and 2 meters in diameter, colored white with orange stripes to improve visibility against the grey terrain. The cylinder contains the habitat structure in a folded state, compressed by carefully engineered mechanisms that will allow it to expand when activated. Next to the habitat module, you see the rover vehicle that will help transport equipment. And the rover is a small 4-wheeled platform with an electric motor powered by batteries recharged from solar panels. Various containers holding scientific instruments, supplies, and tools are strapped down along the walls of the cargo bay. You release the restraining straps holding the rover, and the vehicle rolls slightly forward on its suspension as the tension is relieved. Climbing onto the rover's operator platform, you activate its systems using the simple control panel, and the status display shows battery charge at 98% and all systems functioning normally. The rover is designed for slow, steady movement across regolith. and its large wheels have deep treads that provide traction in the loose material. The top speed is only about 5 kilometers per hour, but the rover can carry loads of several hundred kilograms easily in Mercury's reduced gravity. Maneuvering the rover backward out of the cargo bay requires care because the ramp is narrow and the wheels must stay on the surface, and you guide it slowly down until all 4 wheels rest on the regolith. The rover settles slightly as its weight compresses the surface dust, and you drive it in a small test circle to verify that the controls are responsive and the wheels are gripping properly. Satisfied that the rover is functioning well, you drive it back to the cargo bay and position it next to the ramp to begin loading. The habitat module will need to be loaded first because it is the largest and heaviest item, and it will require careful handling to move it without damage. Using the manual winch system built into the cargo bay, you attach hooks to the lifting points on the habitat module, and then you operate the winch controls to raise the cylinder slightly above its resting position. The module rises smoothly as the winch cable takes the weight, and you continue raising it until it clears the securing brackets that held it in place during the landing. Swinging the winch arm slowly outward, you maneuver the suspended module toward the rover's cargo platform, and you lower it carefully until it rests on the platform with the securing brackets aligned. Detaching the winch hooks, you use the rover's integrated tie-down straps to secure the module to the platform, ensuring it will not shift during transport. The loaded rover sits lower on its suspension than it did empty, but the wheels still have adequate clearance and the systems show no overload warnings. You walk around the rover to check that the module is properly secured and that the weight is distributed evenly across the platform. Everything appears correct, and the rover is ready for the journey to the campsite. Climbing back onto the operator platform, you engage the drive system and begin moving slowly away from the lander toward the marked campsite location, approximately 300 meters distant. The rover moves at a walking pace, and you walk alongside it rather than riding on the small operator platform, because walking is more comfortable in the bulky suit. The wheels crush the regolith as they roll, leaving tracks that parallel your boot prints from the earlier exploration walk. The habitat module remains stable on the cargo platform, and the tie-down straps keep it from shifting even when the rover moves over small rocks or dips in the terrain. The electric motor operates silently in the vacuum, and the only indication of its operation is the gentle movement of the rover and the slight vibration you can feel through the controls. Following the route you scouted earlier, you guide the rover across the undulating terrain toward the flat area where the orange marker flag stands. The journey takes about 20 minutes because you maintain a slow pace to ensure the load remains stable, and you stop occasionally to check that the straps are still tight. The rover handles the terrain well, and its large wheels find traction even in the loose regolith. Crossing the ridge where you stopped earlier, you descend the far slope carefully, and the rover's automatic braking system prevents it from rolling too fast down the incline. Reaching the flat area, you can see the orange marker flag in the distance, and you steer the rover directly toward it. The flag waves slightly from the vibration transmitted through the ground as the rover approaches, though there is no wind to move it. Stopping the rover about 5 meters from the marker, you set the parking brake and climb off the operator platform to begin the habitat deployment sequence. The module must be positioned precisely at the marked center point, and then the automated expansion process will take about 1 hour to complete. Using the rover's manual winch system, you lift the habitat module slightly off the cargo platform and swing it over the regolith, lowering it carefully to the ground at the exact position marked by the flag. The module settles into the dust with a soft impact that you feel through your boots, and it rests level on the surface. You remove the orange flag and reposition it a few meters away, where it will not interfere with the expansion, but will remain visible as a reference marker. The habitat module sits on the grey regolith, a white cylinder with orange stripes, ready to transform into humanity's first Mercurian home. Accessing the control panel on the module's exterior, you enter the activation code that initiates the expansion sequence, and a series of indicator lights illuminate to show that the automated systems are beginning their programmed routine. The module remains still for a moment as internal systems perform safety checks, and then you see the first movement as locking pins retract from their secured positions. The top section of the cylinder begins to rise as pneumatic actuators push it upward, and the walls that were folded inside begin to unfold like mechanical origami. The motion is slow and deliberate, controlled by motors and actuators that follow a precise sequence to avoid damaging the delicate, inflatable sections. Standing back about 10 meters to watch the process, you see the habitat taking shape over the course of several minutes. The cylindrical base remains on the ground, while the upper structure extends upward and outward, and accordion-like sections unfold to create the walls. The inflatable panels begin to expand as the internal atmosphere system pumps gas into them, and these panels form the curved dome shape that will be the habitat's final form. The structure grows steadily upward and outward, and the motion is smooth and continuous without any jerky movements or hesitations. The white material of the walls gleams in the harsh sunlight, and the orange stripe segments that mark structural elements create a pleasing pattern against the white background. After about 40 minutes, the habitat has reached its full expanded size, and the structure is a white dome about 6 meters in diameter at the base and 3 meters high at the center point. The dome shape provides structural strength while maximizing interior space, and the curved surface helps deflect micrometeorite impacts and distribute thermal stress evenly. The walls are multi-layered, with the outer layer providing micrometeorite protection and thermal insulation, the middle layer containing radiation shielding material, and the inner layer being the pressure hull that contains the breathable atmosphere. The total wall thickness is about 40 centimeters, and the structure is designed to withstand temperature extremes ranging from minus 170 degrees Celsius to plus 430 degrees Celsius. The final stage of deployment involves the foundation anchors, and you see 4 anchor assemblies extending downward from the base of the dome at 90-degree intervals. Each anchor is a drill mechanism that automatically activates and begins to drill down into the regolith. The drills are designed to penetrate approximately 3 meters deep, reaching into the bedrock beneath the loose surface layer. The drilling takes about 10 minutes per anchor, and you can see the regolith being pushed up around each anchor point as the drills descend. The anchors will be cemented in place by thermal expansion when the underground portions heat up and cool down in the day-night cycle, creating a permanent bond with the surrounding rock. While the anchors complete their drilling, the solar panel arrays begin their automated deployment from storage compartments at the base of the dome. The arrays extend outward on motorized arms that rotate them into position east and west of the habitat, and the panels unfold into their operating configuration. Each array consists of multiple panels arranged in a flat surface angled slightly to optimize sun exposure at Mercury's latitude and the current solar angle. The panels are designed to track the sun slowly across the sky during the long Mercurian day, adjusting their angle to maintain maximum efficiency as the sun moves. The arrays extend about 8 meters from each side of the habitat, and their total surface area is about 50 square meters, providing enough power for all habitat systems during the day, with enough excess to charge battery storage for nighttime operation. The communications antenna extends upward from the top of the dome on a telescoping mast, and the antenna dish unfolds and orients itself automatically toward Earth's position in the sky. The antenna will maintain a constant connection with Earth despite the rotation of Mercury, automatically adjusting its aim as needed. The antenna system is critical for mission success because it allows data transmission, receives updated instructions from mission control, and provides a lifeline for communications during emergencies. The signal delay between Mercury and Earth varies from about 4 to 14 minutes, one way, depending on the planet's positions in their orbits, making real-time conversation impossible, but allowing effective message exchange. Standing in front of the now fully deployed habitat, you see a structure that represents years of engineering work and the hopes of extending human presence to the innermost planet. The white dome rises from the grey regolith, and the solar arrays extend like wings on either side, and the communications antenna points upward toward the black sky, where Earth is a tiny blue dot, invisible to the naked eye. The habitat is complete and functional, waiting only for the internal systems to be activated and the final checks to be performed before it can support human occupancy. The first permanent base on Mercury has been established, and the campsite is beginning to take shape. The habitat stands complete on the grey regolith, and you walk slowly around its perimeter to inspect the structure and verify that all deployment systems have functioned correctly. The white dome appears solid and well-formed, with no visible gaps or irregularities in the inflated panels that form the walls. The foundation anchors have finished drilling and are locked in position, and you can see the disturbed regolith around each anchor point, where material was displaced during the drilling process. The solar arrays extend symmetrically from both sides of the dome, and their surfaces catch the sunlight and convert it to electrical power that flows into the habitat's battery storage system. Approaching one of the solar arrays, you examine the panel surface closely and see that the photovoltaic cells are arranged in a grid pattern with thin lines separating each cell. The cells are dark blue and appear undamaged from the deployment process, and the surface is covered with a transparent protective layer designed to resist the abrasion from micrometeorite impacts and the degradation from intense solar radiation. The array mounting framework is aluminum alloy, chosen for its light weight and its ability to withstand the extreme temperature variations that will occur between sunlit and shadowed conditions. The framework appears sturdy and well secured to the habitat base. Walking to the east side of the habitat, you notice that the temperature reading on your suit display is rising slightly, and the ground temperature shown by your boot sensors indicates nearly 420 degrees Celsius in the direct sunlight. Your suit's thermal management system is working continuously to remove the heat that radiates from the ground and the direct solar input, and the system pumps coolant through tubes woven into the suit fabric to keep your body at a comfortable temperature. The insulation layers in the suit prevent the external heat from reaching you, and the active cooling handles the waste heat your body generates from movement and metabolism. Looking toward a shadowed area near one of the habitat's support structures, you see a sharp boundary between the sunlit regolith and the area in shadow, and the contrast is absolute, with no gradual transition. The shadowed regolith appears darker grey than the sunlit areas, and the temperature in shadow is drastically lower according to the thermal imaging display on your helmet. The shadowed area measures approximately -170 degrees Celsius, creating a temperature differential of nearly 600 degrees across a distance of just a few centimeters. This extreme temperature variation exists because there is no atmosphere to distribute heat between sunlit and shadowed regions. Walking deliberately into the shadowed area, you feel your suit's thermal systems adjust immediately to the changing conditions, and the cooling system reduces its activity while heaters begin operating to prevent excessive cold from reaching you. Your boot sensors show the ground temperature plummeting as you stand in the shadow, though the thick soles of your boots insulate your feet from the extreme cold. Standing with one foot in sunlight and one in shadow creates a strange situation where the sensors on each boot read temperatures that differ by more than 500 degrees. Yet you feel comfortable because the suit maintains a constant internal environment. The extreme temperature variation on Mercury is more severe than on any other planet in the solar system, and the range from the hottest daytime temperature to the coldest nighttime temperature spans over 600 degrees Celsius. The lack of atmosphere means there is no heat distribution mechanism like wind or convection, and each surface area heats or cools based purely on whether sunlight strikes it directly. The rotation period of Mercury is 59 Earth days, which is slow enough that daytime heating can drive temperatures very high before the rotation carries that region into darkness. The orbital resonance between Mercury's rotation and its orbit around the Sun creates a solar day length of 176 Earth days, meaning sunrise to sunrise spans nearly half a Mercurian year. Stepping back into the sunlight, you feel the thermal system adjust again, and the suit begins cooling more aggressively to compensate for the intense solar input. The sun hangs in the black sky to your left, and even through the filtered visor, its brilliance is impressive. The solar disk appears much larger than you have ever seen it from Earth, spanning roughly 1.5 degrees of arc compared to the half degree it shows from Earth. The increased apparent size reflects Mercury's closer proximity to the Sun, averaging about 58 million kilometers compared to Earth's 150 million kilometers. Looking directly at the Sun through your visor's darkened filter, allows you to see details on the solar surface that would be impossible to observe without protection. The photosphere shows subtle texture that might be granulation, the cellular pattern created by convection currents in the sun's outer layers. A small dark spot near the sun's edge might be a sunspot, a region where magnetic fields suppress convection and create a cooler area that appears dark against the brighter surroundings. The solar disk is so brilliant that even filtered it dominates your field of view, and you look away after a few seconds to avoid eye strain. The intensity of sunlight at Mercury's distance from the Sun is approximately 6.7 times greater than the solar constant at Earth, meaning each square meter of surface receives about 9,000 watts of solar energy compared to about 1,400 watts at Earth. This intense radiation heats the surface rapidly during the day, and the lack of atmosphere means all the energy that is not reflected is absorbed and converted to heat. The regolith is dark enough that it absorbs most of the incoming radiation, and the temperature rises steadily throughout the long day until it reaches the equilibrium point, where thermal radiation carries away as much energy as sunlight brings in. The slow passage of time on Mercury creates a unique situation where the sun barely appears to move across the sky when observed over human timescales. Standing still and watching the sun for several minutes, you notice no perceptible change in its position relative to the horizon or the distant crater rim. The sun's motion is real, but so slow that detecting it requires comparing its position hours apart rather than minutes. The long solar day means that from any given location on Mercury's surface, the sun remains visible for about 88 Earth days before setting, followed by another 88 days of darkness before the next sunrise. During the current mission, you will not witness significant solar movement because your planned surface time is measured in days rather than weeks, and the sun will appear essentially stationary throughout your stay. Future crews who remain at the campsite for longer durations will be able to track the sun's slow arc across the sky and will experience the gradual changes in lighting and shadow directions as Mercury rotates. The long day creates challenges for power management because solar panels can generate electricity continuously for weeks. But when night arrives, it will last for weeks as well, requiring either enormous battery storage or the ability to shut down most systems and hibernate through the darkness. The habitat behind you is designed to operate autonomously during the night by reducing power consumption to minimal levels and relying on battery storage and radioisotope heater units to maintain critical systems. The heater units use the decay heat from radioactive materials to provide warmth without requiring electrical power, and they will prevent the habitat's internal systems from freezing during the long, cold night. Future crews will need to plan their missions to arrive during the day when solar power is available and complete their work before the extended night begins. Or they will need to bring additional power systems capable of sustaining operations in darkness. Looking up at the black sky surrounding the sun, you see stars visible in all directions, except in the area close to the solar disk, where the glare overwhelms the fainter stellar light. The stars appear as steady points, without the twinkling that Earth's atmosphere creates, and their colors are pure and clear. The brightest stars show subtle color differences, with some appearing bluish-white and others showing yellow or orange tints that indicate their surface temperatures and spectral classes. The Milky Way is visible as a faint band stretching across the sky in a path that avoids the sun's position, and the galactic structure is clearer than you have ever seen it from Earth. Turning your attention back toward the habitat, you notice that your shadow on the regolith is remarkably sharp and black, with edges that appear crisp and clearly defined. The shadow extends several meters across the ground, and every detail of your suit's profile is reproduced in the shadow shape. Moving one arm upward creates an immediate change in the shadow, and you can see your gloved hand's silhouette against the grey surface. The absence of atmospheric scattering means that light travels in perfectly straight lines from the sun to your suit to the ground, creating shadows that would be impossible on Earth, where scattered light always softens edges and fills in the darkest areas with some illumination. Walking a slow circle around the habitat, you observe how the structure casts its own shadow on the regolith, and the shadow is a perfect circular disc that extends outward from the base of the dome. The solar arrays cast rectangular shadows that are positioned precisely opposite the sun's direction, and the communications antenna creates a long, thin shadow that points away from the sun like a sundial pointer. The shadows remain perfectly still because the sun's motion is imperceptible over short time periods, and the scene has a frozen quality that makes it feel like a photograph rather than a dynamic environment. The thermal challenges that the habitat must handle are visible in the temperature variations across its surface, and you can see heat shimmer rising from the areas that face the sun directly, despite the insulation layers. The shimmer is not caused by atmospheric distortion, but rather by the variation in thermal radiation emitted from different parts of the structure, and it appears as a slight wavering in the background view when you look across the heated surfaces. The dome's white color helps reflect solar radiation and reduce the heat absorbed, but even so, the exterior surface temperature in direct sunlight approaches 150 degrees Celsius, while the shadowed side remains much cooler. The extreme environment you are experiencing is manageable only because of the advanced technology built into your suit and the habitat. And without this protection, the surface of Mercury would be instantly lethal to human life. The vacuum alone would cause fatal injuries within seconds, and the temperature extremes would cause severe burns or freezing, depending on whether you were in sunlight or shadow. The radiation exposure would be fatal within hours, even if the other hazards could somehow be managed. Standing here protected and comfortable, you appreciate the engineering that makes it possible to work in one of the solar system's harshest environments. Looking at your suit's system displays, you see that the life support has been operating for about 3 hours since you first stepped outside. And the oxygen supply is still at 78% of capacity. The carbon dioxide scrubbers are functioning normally, and the water supply for cooling is adequate for many more hours of operation. The power system shows 84% battery charge, which is excellent because the suit's solar panels on the shoulders and back have been recharging the batteries while you work in the sunlight. The thermal system indicates nominal operation across all zones, and your body temperature remains steady at 37 degrees Celsius, despite the extreme external conditions. The sun dominates the sky above you, and taking time to observe it more carefully, reveals details that would be invisible from Earth without specialized equipment. The solar disk appears as a brilliant white circle with slightly softer edges, and the light is so intense that even through multiple filtering layers, the brightness is impressive. Looking carefully through the darkened visor filter, you can see that the solar surface is not perfectly uniform, and there are subtle variations in brightness across the photosphere that suggest the granulation pattern created by convection cells rising and falling in the outer layers of the sun's atmosphere. Near the edge of the solar disk, you notice what appears to be a small dark region that might be a sunspot group, and the feature is visible as a tiny dark spot against the brighter photosphere. Sunspots are areas where strong magnetic fields suppress the normal convection that carries heat to the surface. And these regions appear darker because they are about 1,500 degrees cooler than the surrounding photosphere. From Mercury's closer vantage point, sunspots that would be barely visible from Earth become more apparent, and the detail visible on the solar surface is enhanced by the reduced distance and the lack of atmospheric distortion. Adjusting the filter on your visor to maximum darkness, you look near the edge of the sun and search for any sign of solar prominences or other features that might extend beyond the main disk. The prominences are loops of plasma that follow magnetic field lines and sometimes extend thousands of kilometers above the photosphere, and they appear as bright features when viewed at the sun's edge during certain wavelengths. You do not see any prominent features during this observation, but the possibility exists, and future missions might witness active regions or coronal mass ejections that would be spectacular from this close vantage point. The brightness of the sun from Mercury's surface is approximately 6.7 times more intense than the solar constant at Earth, and this increased intensity is immediately obvious when you compare your memory of sunlight on Earth to what you experience here. The sunlight feels more aggressive and more penetrating, even though your suit prevents any direct sensation of the radiation. The visual brightness is such that surfaces in direct sunlight appear almost white with glare, while shadows are absolute black, creating a high contrast environment that makes depth perception challenging until your eyes adapt to the conditions. Looking away from the sun toward other parts of the sky, you see the black expanse filled with stars that shine steadily without any atmospheric shimmer. The stars near the horizon appear exactly the same as stars overhead because there is no atmospheric refraction to distort their positions or dim their light. The familiar constellations are visible in their expected positions, though from Mercury's vantage point inside Earth's orbit, the perspective is slightly different. Venus, Earth, and Mars are all outside Mercury's orbit and would appear as evening or morning stars at different times depending on the orbital positions, though identifying them requires knowing their current locations. Searching the sky for Earth, you know the approximate direction where it should be based on the current date and orbital positions, and you look toward that area of the black sky, away from the sun. Earth should appear as one of the brighter stars, shining with a blue-white color that distinguishes it from other objects. Scanning the stars in that region, you identify a bright bluish point that could be Earth based on its brightness and color, though without confirming with instruments, you cannot be certain. The Earth is about 100 million kilometers away from Mercury at the current orbital positions, making it appear as a magnitude -2.5 object, brighter than most stars, but still just a point of light. The Moon would be visible near Earth if you could resolve them separately. But at this distance, the Moon and Earth appear as a single point to the naked eye, separated by an angle of only a few arcseconds. With magnification from a telescope or your helmet's zoom display, the two objects could be distinguished, but to your unaided eye, they are one bluish star in the black sky. Looking at that distant point and knowing it is your home world creates a strange feeling of isolation and distance, and you are struck by how far you have traveled to stand on this airless world, orbiting close to the sun. Turning your attention to other parts of the sky, you identify Venus as another bright object in a different direction, and Venus appears distinctly yellowish-white compared to Earth's blue tint. Venus is closer to the Sun than Earth, and should appear brighter than Earth from Mercury's perspective. And the object you identify as Venus is indeed one of the brightest stars visible. Mars would appear as a reddish point somewhere else in the sky, though finding it without instruments is challenging among the many stars visible in the perfect transparency of the airless environment. The outer planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are also visible as bright stars in their respective regions of the sky, though they are much farther from Mercury and appear dimmer than the inner planets. Jupiter should shine with steady white light and be easily identified as one of the brighter stars, while Saturn would be slightly dimmer, but still prominent. The zodiacal constellations that these planets move through would be the same constellations visible from Earth, though the planets' positions within those constellations would be different because you are viewing them from Mercury's location rather than Earth's. The Milky Way stretches across the black sky in a luminous band that is far more impressive than the view from Earth's surface, and the lack of atmospheric interference or light pollution makes the galactic structure brilliantly clear. You can see variations in brightness along the band where dense star fields create brighter regions, and where dark nebulae block the light from stars behind them. The central bulge of the galaxy appears as a bright, irregular glow in the constellation Sagittarius, and the spiral arms create the characteristic lane of light that circles the sky. The number of individual stars visible is far greater than what you could see from Earth, and the sky appears crowded with stellar points. Looking toward the galactic center region, you see the dense star fields that characterize the inner portions of the galaxy, and the concentration of stars creates a continuous glow rather than individual points. Dark lanes cut through the bright regions where dust clouds in the galactic plane block the light from stars beyond. The three-dimensional structure of the galaxy becomes more apparent when viewed from this airless world, and you can appreciate the layered depth as near stars appear sharp and bright, while more distant regions create a softer background glow. The zodiacal light, which is the faint glow along the ecliptic plane created by sunlight reflecting off dust particles in the inner solar system, is visible as a subtle brightening extending away from the sun's position. The zodiacal light is normally difficult to see from Earth because it requires very dark skies and is easily washed out by light pollution or atmospheric glow. From Mercury's surface, with no atmosphere and no light pollution, the zodiacal light is clearly visible as a faint conical glow extending along the orbital plane. The dust that creates this light is concentrated in the inner solar system, where you are now, and seeing it from this perspective provides a view of the material that orbits between the planets. Stars continue to shine steadily overhead, and their lack of twinkling creates a static appearance that makes the sky seem painted rather than dynamic. On Earth, atmospheric turbulence causes stars to twinkle as pockets of air with different temperatures and densities refract the light along slightly different paths, creating the familiar shimmer. Here on Mercury, the vacuum allows starlight to travel in perfectly straight lines, from the star to your eye, and each star shines with constant brightness and position. The effect is beautiful, but also slightly unsettling because your Earth-trained brain expects stars to twinkle, and the absence of that familiar motion makes the scene feel frozen. Looking at the brighter stars, you can distinguish color differences that reveal their surface temperatures and spectral types. Blue-white stars are the hottest, with surface temperatures above 10,000 degrees Kelvin, while yellow stars like the Sun have temperatures around 5,700 degrees. Orange and red stars are cooler still, with temperatures ranging from 3,000 to 5,000 degrees. The colors are subtle, but visible to careful observation, and identifying these differences helps you appreciate the diversity of stellar types scattered across the galaxy. The star patterns you see are the same constellations that humans have observed for thousands of years, and despite being on another planet, the stars themselves appear in familiar arrangements. Orion would show the same pattern of stars, the Big Dipper would have the same shape, and all the traditional constellations would be recognizable. The reason is that the stars are so distant compared to the spacing between planets that the viewing angle change from being on Mercury instead of Earth is negligible. Only the very nearest stars would show any measurable position shift, and that difference would require careful measurement to detect. Bringing your attention back to the local environment, you see the habitat standing on the regolith, with the sun's light creating strong illumination on one side and deep shadow on the other. The solar panels glint as they reflect sunlight, and the communications antenna points upward toward the black sky. The orange marker flag you placed earlier is visible beyond the habitat, and your boot prints trace paths across the grey surface in multiple directions. The scene is static and silent, and time seems to move slowly here on this ancient world, where nothing changes except on geological timescales measured in millions of years. The view of the Sun from Mercury, 3 times larger than it appears from Earth, and vastly brighter, is something no human has witnessed before. And you take a moment to appreciate the uniqueness of this perspective. Future crews will stand here and look at the same sun, and they will see the same stars in the black sky. But for now, this experience is yours alone. The sun will continue its slow arc across Mercury's sky throughout the long day, and eventually it will set and the surface will plunge into darkness and cold for another long night. But the cycle will continue as it has for billions of years. Turning your attention away from the sky and back toward the ground, you notice the crater you observed earlier from a distance. And it appears as a low rim rising above the horizon roughly 300 meters to the east. The crater looks accessible and potentially interesting for exploration, and walking to it would provide an opportunity to examine Mercury's impact features up close. Checking your suit's life support systems confirms that you have adequate resources for an extended walk, and the habitat is now established and secure enough to leave unattended while you conduct some scientific exploration of the surrounding terrain. You set out walking toward the crater rim, following a direct path across the regolith that takes you away from the habitat and the lander. The ground shows the same general character as the terrain you have already crossed, with scattered rocks and gentle undulations creating a varied but not difficult walking surface. Your boot prints mark your path clearly, and you walk at a steady pace that keeps your breathing comfortable and allows you to observe the terrain as you go. The crater rim grows larger as you approach, and details of its structure become visible. After about 10 minutes of walking, you reach the base of the crater rim, where the ground begins to slope upward more steeply than the general terrain. The rim rises perhaps 15 to 20 meters above the surrounding surface, and the slope is covered with regolith that appears loose and potentially unstable. Small rocks are scattered on the slope, and they appear to have rolled down from the rim crest at some point, leaving faint trails in the dust behind them. The crater is clearly quite old because the rim is rounded and subdued rather than sharp and fresh-looking as a recent impact would create. Climbing the inner slope toward the crater rim requires careful footing because the regolith is loose on the incline, and your boots sink deeper with each step than they did on level ground. You climb slowly, testing each foothold before committing your weight, and you use your hands to steady yourself against larger rocks when they are available. The reduced gravity makes the climb easier than it would be on Earth, and you feel only moderate exertion as you work your way upward. The slope angle is probably around 25 to 30 degrees, steep enough to be challenging but not dangerous with care. Reaching the crest of the crater rim after a few minutes of climbing, you stand at the high point and look down into the crater's interior. The crater appears to be roughly circular and perhaps 70 to 80 meters in diameter, and the floor is visible about 20 meters below the rim crest where you stand. The interior walls slope down at a fairly consistent angle, and the floor appears relatively flat with some scattered rocks and what might be a small central mound. The crater is a simple bowl shape without the complex features like terraced walls or central peaks that larger craters develop, and this indicates it was formed by a relatively small impactor. The view from the rim allows you to see the surrounding terrain from an elevated perspective, and you can see the habitat as a small white dome in the distance, with its solar arrays extending to either side. The lander is visible beyond the habitat, appearing as a small, bright shape against the grey ground. Your boot prints are visible as faint lines connecting the various locations you have visited, and the paths trace the exploration you have conducted so far. The terrain extends in all directions with gentle variations, and additional craters are visible as subtle depressions or rims in the distance. Looking down into the crater interior, you decide to descend to the floor to examine the features more closely and perhaps collect some rock samples. The descent into the crater will be steeper than the climb up the outer rim, and you will need to be careful to avoid sliding in the loose regolith. Moving to a section of the rim where the inner wall appears less steep, you begin descending sideways, facing the slope and stepping down carefully while controlling your descent speed. The regolith slides and shifts under your boots, but the reduced gravity prevents you from descending too quickly. The descent takes several minutes, and you work your way down the slope in a zigzag pattern that reduces the steepness of each step. Small rocks dislodged by your boots tumble down the slope ahead of you, and they bounce in the low gravity before coming to rest on the crater floor. The inner wall is definitely steeper than the outer rim, and the slope angle is probably around 35 to 40 degrees, steep enough that descending straight down would be difficult. The sideways approach works well, and you reach the crater floor without any problems. Standing on the crater floor, you look up at the rim surrounding you on all sides, and the bowl shape creates a natural amphitheater with walls rising about 20 meters above the floor level. The floor is approximately 50 meters in diameter, smaller than the rim diameter because the sloping walls take up space between the rim crest and the floor. The surface of the floor is covered with regolith, similar to the surrounding terrain, and several large rocks are scattered across the floor, probably ejected material that fell back into the crater after the impact that created this feature. Walking toward the center of the crater floor, you notice a small mound rising perhaps 2 meters above the general floor level, and this could be a remnant of the central uplift that sometimes forms during impacts when the ground rebounds after being compressed by the impactor. The mound is irregular in shape and composed of fractured rock partially covered by regolith. Reaching the mound, you examine its structure and see that the rock is grey with some lighter coloured veins running through it, and the fractures create angular surfaces that catch the sunlight and create patterns of light and shadow. Kneeling beside one of the large rocks on the crater floor, you examine its surface closely and see that it has a glassy coating on one side, and the coating appears as a smooth, shiny layer over the rougher rock surface. This glass was probably formed when impact heat melted the rock surface, creating a glaze that cooled and solidified rapidly. The glass coating is found on some rocks on Earth near impact sites, and it is common on airless bodies like the Moon and Mercury, where impacts are the primary geological process shaping the surface. The rock itself is dark grey and appears to be basaltic material, similar to volcanic rock, but formed during the impact rather than through volcanic eruption. Using a small hammer tool from your suit's equipment belt, you strike the rock carefully to break off a sample, and the rock fractures along existing cracks to yield several pieces small enough to collect. The pieces show the internal structure of the rock, and you can see that it is fine-grained and relatively uniform without obvious crystals or inclusions. Placing the rock samples into a collection bag, you seal the bag and label it with the location and time using your suit's voice recording system. These samples will be returned to the habitat and eventually to Earth for detailed analysis that will reveal the exact composition and age of the material. Moving to another rock near the crater wall, you notice that this specimen is lighter in color than the first sample, and it appears to be a different rock type. The surface texture is rougher and shows more weathering effects from the continuous bombardment of micrometeorites and solar wind particles that strike every exposed surface on Mercury. Breaking off a sample of this rock as well, you add it to your collection and note the difference in appearance. The variety in rock types within the crater suggests that the impactor struck a region with varied geology, or that the impact excavated material from different depths beneath the surface. The crater floor shows no signs of recent disturbance, except for your boot prints and the tracks of the small rocks you have dislodged while walking. The age of this crater is probably measured in hundreds of millions or billions of years, and it has remained essentially unchanged during all that time, except for the slow accumulation of micrometeorite impacts that gradually modify the surface texture. The regolith on the floor is probably deeper than on the surrounding terrain because material has been washing down the walls over geological time, though washing happens only through impacts and slope failures rather than through any fluid flow. Looking up at the rim from the crater floor, you see the sharp boundary where the rim meets the black sky, and the sun is visible above the rim to your left, creating bright illumination on that portion of the inner wall, while the opposite side remains in deep shadow. The shadows inside the crater are absolute black because no scattered light exists to fill them in, and you can see the sharp terminator line where sunlight ends and shadow begins. Some areas of the crater floor are in permanent shadow, depending on the sun's angle and Mercury's axial tilt. And these permanently shadowed regions could potentially contain water ice if any volatiles have been delivered by cometary impacts. The permanently shadowed regions near Mercury's poles are known to contain water ice deposits that have been detected by radar observations from orbital spacecraft. And these ice deposits survive because the temperature in permanent shadow never rises high enough to sublimate the ice. The crater you are standing in is not located near the poles, and its floor receives sunlight during most of Mercury's day, so water ice is unlikely to exist here. But the permanently shadowed polar craters are scientifically important because they preserve materials that would evaporate elsewhere on Mercury, and future missions may explore those regions to study the ice deposits. Preparing to leave the crater and return to the habitat, you walk back toward the wall where you descended, and you begin climbing up the inner slope toward the rim. The climb is more challenging than the descent because you are working against gravity, even though the gravity is only 38% of Earth normal. The loose regolith makes footing difficult, and you need to dig your boots in firmly with each step to avoid sliding backward. The climb takes about 10 minutes, and you pause several times to catch your breath and verify that your suit systems are handling the increased exertion without problems. Reaching the crater rim, you stand at the crest one more time and look back down at the crater floor where your boot prints mark the areas you visited. The samples in your collection bag represent the first geological specimens collected from this crater, and they will provide information about Mercury's surface composition and impact history. The crater has been a useful stop during your exploration, and it has given you experience with Mercury's terrain variations and with the challenges of working in the low gravity on steep slopes. Turning away from the crater, you begin the walk back toward the habitat visible in the distance. The walk back toward the habitat takes you across terrain that is now familiar, and you move at a comfortable pace that allows you to observe the ground and think about the next phase of the mission. The scientific instrument packages need to be deployed around the campsite, and sample collection should continue from various locations to build a representative collection of Mercury's surface materials. The habitat itself requires a final check to ensure all systems are functioning correctly before it can be declared fully operational. Walking alone across the grey regolith under the black sky creates a meditative quality, and the silence, except for your own breathing and sounds, encourages contemplation. Reaching the campsite area, you see the habitat dome standing exactly as you left it, and the structure appears secure and stable, with no signs of any problems. The solar arrays continue to generate power, and the battery status shown on the habitat's external display panel indicates 96% charge, which is excellent. The communications antenna maintains its orientation toward Earth, and the status light shows green to indicate active connection with mission control. Walking to the habitat's airlock entrance, you place the sample collection bag into an external storage compartment that will keep the samples secure until they can be properly catalogued and stored inside the habitat. Returning to the lander to retrieve the scientific instruments is the next task, and you walk back across the 400 meters separating the campsite from the landing zone. The rover is still positioned near the habitat where you left it after transporting the habitat module, and you could use it to carry the instrument packages, but walking remains enjoyable in the reduced gravity, and the exercise helps maintain your conditioning. The lander appears ahead, and reaching it takes about 15 minutes of walking at a steady pace. The cargo bay still stands open, with the ramp extended to the ground, and inside you see the containers holding the scientific instruments that will form the permanent research station at the campsite. The instrument suite includes a seismometer to detect Mercury quakes, a magnetometer to measure the planet's weak magnetic field, a solar wind particle detector, a thermal monitoring station, and a weather station designed to measure the radiation and temperature variations. Each instrument is packed in a protective container designed to survive the extreme conditions, and the containers are labeled clearly with their contents. Loading the instrument containers onto the rover requires careful handling because some of the instruments are delicate despite their protective packaging, and you secure each container to the rover's cargo platform with straps. The seismometer container is the largest and heaviest, and you position it in the center of the platform where its weight will be balanced evenly. The other containers fit around the seismometer, and you arrange them to maximize stability during transport. With all the containers loaded and secured, the rover sits low on its suspension, but remains well within its weight capacity. Driving the rover back to the campsite, you maintain a slow speed to avoid jarring the instruments, and the journey takes about 25 minutes. The rover handles the load well, and the containers remain stable throughout the trip. Arriving at the campsite, you park the rover about 20 meters north of the habitat where the instrument cluster will be located. Unloading the containers and placing them on the ground in their designated positions takes a few minutes, and then you are ready to begin the deployment process for each instrument. The seismometer is deployed first because it requires the most precise positioning and installation. Opening the container reveals the instrument mounted on a base plate with folding legs that will support it on the regolith surface. The seismometer is designed to detect ground vibrations caused by Mercury quakes, which occur as the planet slowly cools and contracts over geological time. The instrument must be placed on level ground and protected from temperature extremes, and it includes a thermal shroud that will shade it from direct sunlight while allowing it to radiate excess heat to space. Carrying the seismometer to its marked position, about 30 meters north of the habitat, you find a particularly flat area of regolith and set the instrument down gently. The legs extend downward, and you adjust each leg's length until the bubble level on the instrument shows perfect horizontal alignment. The leveling is critical because any tilt will affect the seismometer's sensitivity and accuracy. Once the instrument is level, you deploy the thermal shroud, which unfolds from the base to create a reflective cover that will protect the instrument from direct solar heating. Connecting the seismometer to the power and data system requires running a cable from the instrument back to the habitat's external connection panel, and you unroll the cable from its storage spool and lay it across the regolith surface. The cable is designed to withstand the temperature extremes and remain flexible even when one end is in sunlight and the other is in shadow. Plugging the cable into the seismometer's connector port and then into the habitat panel completes the installation, and the seismometer begins its initialization sequence. A green status light indicates successful activation, and the instrument will now continuously monitor for seismic activity and transmit data to the habitat's computer system. The magnetometer is deployed next, and this instrument measures the strength and direction of Mercury's magnetic field at the surface. Mercury is unusual among rocky planets in having a global magnetic field, despite its small size, and the field strength is about 1% of Earth's field strength. The field is generated by convection in Mercury's partially molten iron core, and studying the field helps scientists understand the planet's interior structure and thermal evolution. The magnetometer is a relatively small instrument, and it is mounted on a pole that extends about 2 meters above the ground to minimize interference from magnetic minerals in the regolith. Positioning the magnetometer to the east of the habitat at a distance of about 25 meters ensures that it will not be affected by any magnetic materials in the habitat structure, and you drive the mounting pole into the regolith until it stands firmly vertical. The magnetometer sensor is attached to the top of the pole, and you connect its cable to the habitat's data system. The instrument activates and begins measuring the magnetic field components, and the data stream appears on your helmet display, showing field strength readings in nanoteslas. The values are small, confirming the weak nature of Mercury's field, but they are measurable and will provide valuable information about how the field varies across the surface. The solar wind particle detector is deployed next, and this instrument captures charged particles from the sun that stream past Mercury continuously. The detector uses electric and magnetic fields to sort particles by their charge and energy, and it measures the flux and composition of the solar wind. Understanding the solar wind at Mercury's distance from the sun helps scientists study solar activity and its effects on the innermost planet. The detector is mounted on a small platform that you place to the west of the habitat, and you orient it to face generally toward the sun's direction so that incoming particles will enter the detector's aperture. Connecting the particle detector to the power and data system completes its installation, and the instrument begins collecting data immediately. The particle flux at Mercury is much higher than at Earth, because Mercury is closer to the Sun and outside the protection of Earth's magnetosphere, and the detector measures counts in the thousands per second, showing the intense bombardment of solar particles. The data will be stored in the habitat's computer and transmitted to Earth regularly, allowing scientists to monitor solar wind conditions at Mercury's orbit. The thermal monitoring station is deployed in an area that receives direct sunlight throughout most of Mercury's day, and the station includes multiple temperature sensors at different heights above the surface to measure how temperature varies with altitude. The station also includes a radiometer that measures the incoming and outgoing radiation to determine the surface energy balance. Installing the thermal station requires placing the sensor mast vertically and connecting the various sensors to the data system. The temperature readings immediately show the extreme surface values, with the sunlit regolith measuring 423 degrees Celsius and the sensor at 1 meter height measuring 380 degrees. The weather station, designed to monitor radiation levels and temperature variations over time, is the final instrument to deploy, and you position it to the south of the habitat at a distance of about 30 meters. The station includes sensors for ultraviolet radiation, charged particle flux, and temperature, and it will operate continuously throughout the day and night to build a complete picture of Mercury's environment. Installing the weather station completes the instrument deployment, and all 5 systems are now operational and collecting data. Standing near the habitat and looking around at the deployed instruments, you see a small field of scientific equipment surrounding the campsite, and each instrument is connected by cables running across the grey regolith back to the habitat's central data system. The instruments appear small against the vast, empty landscape, but they represent humanity's first permanent scientific presence on Mercury. The data they collect will flow continuously to Earth, providing information about this planet that has never been observed from the surface before. The campsite is becoming a functioning research station. Walking to the habitat's exterior display panel, you check the system status and see that all instruments are reporting healthy operation, and the data streams are being recorded in the habitat's computer and queued for transmission to Earth. The power system shows sufficient capacity to support all the instruments plus the habitat's own systems. And the battery charge remains high because the solar arrays generate more power during the day than the systems consume. The habitat is designed to reduce power consumption during the night when solar generation stops, and the batteries should provide enough energy to maintain critical systems throughout the long darkness. The scientific work is progressing well, and the campsite now has its primary research instruments deployed and operational. Sample collection bags hang from hooks on the habitat's exterior, waiting to be filled with specimens from various locations around the landing site. The rover stands ready for additional equipment transport or for range excursions to more distant locations. The lander remains in its original position, serving as a landmark and backup facility. The first Mercury surface mission is achieving its objectives, and the campsite is taking shape as a base for future exploration. Looking up at the sky, you search again for Earth among the stars, and you locate the blue-white point of light that represents your home world more than 100 million kilometers away. The distance is difficult to comprehend emotionally, even though you understand it intellectually. And seeing Earth as just another star creates a strange feeling of isolation, despite the communications link that connects you to Mission Control. The conversations with Mission Control are delayed by the 8-minute signal travel time each way, making real-time dialogue impossible. But the connection exists, and messages flow regularly between Mercury's surface and the control room on Earth, where teams monitor your progress. Thinking about the people on Earth who are watching the data stream from your mission creates a sense of connection, and you know that every measurement, every image, every sample collected is being studied by scientists who are learning about Mercury for the first time from surface observations. The mission is not just about establishing a campsite, but about expanding human knowledge and presence beyond Earth. And every task you complete here contributes to that larger goal. Future missions will build on this foundation, and eventually Mercury may host a permanent research presence similar to Antarctica on Earth. The stars surrounding Earth in the sky shine steadily, and you recognize some of the brighter ones as nearby stars, like Sirius, Canopus, and Alpha Centauri, though their positions in Mercury's sky are slightly different from their positions as seen from Earth. The constellations remain recognizable, and you can identify Orion, Ursa Major, and other familiar star patterns that have guided human navigation and inspired human imagination for thousands of years. Seeing these same stars from another planet creates a continuity with the past and with Earth, reminding you that despite the distance, you remain part of the same universe that humans have always observed. Looking away from Earth toward another part of the sky, you notice Venus as a bright yellowish star, and Venus is currently on the same side of the Sun as Mercury, making it visible in the sky at a comfortable distance from the solar glare. Venus appears brighter than Earth from this vantage point because it is closer and because its thick cloud cover reflects sunlight very efficiently. The planet that appears so bright in Earth's evening or morning sky is visible from Mercury as well, though from here Venus is just another planet, sharing the inner solar system with Mercury, rather than being the dramatic evening star that Earth observers see. The outer planets are also present in the sky, and Jupiter should be visible as one of the brightest stars in a particular region, though identifying it without checking instruments requires knowing where to look based on current orbital positions. Saturn would be dimmer, but still prominent, and the ice giants Uranus and Neptune would be much fainter and require telescopic aid to locate. Mars might be visible as a reddish star somewhere between Mercury and the outer planets, depending on where it is in its orbit. All the planets are present in the sky simultaneously, because from Mercury's position inside Earth's orbit, everything else in the solar system is spread across the celestial sphere. The Milky Way continues to stretch across the black sky as a luminous band, and the level of detail visible from Mercury's airless environment is remarkable. You can see dark nebulae silhouetted against the brighter background star fields, and you can distinguish the individual stars in some of the denser regions rather than seeing only a continuous glow. The galactic center region appears as a bright, irregular patch with complex structure, and the spiral arms trace paths through the star fields that reveal the galaxy's three-dimensional form. No human has ever seen the Milky Way this clearly, except from space or from the Moon, and Mercury provides another vantage point for this magnificent view. Bringing your attention back to the local environment, you see the campsite spread before you with the white habitat dome at its center and the scientific instruments positioned around it in their designated locations. The solar arrays extend from the habitat-like wings, and the communications antenna points upward toward the invisible Earth. The rover is parked nearby, and the lander is visible in the distance as a bright shape against the regolith. Your boot prints crisscross the area in multiple paths that show where you have walked during the several hours since landing. And the prints are sharp and clear as though just made. The silence remains complete, except for your suit sounds, and the absence of any natural sound creates a profound quiet that is never experienced on Earth, where atmosphere always carries some noise from wind or distant sources. You can hear your own heartbeat and breathing, and occasionally you hear the quiet hum of suit systems or the faint gurgle of coolant flowing through the thermal regulation network. These sounds are comforting because they confirm that your suit is functioning normally, but they also emphasize the absolute silence of Mercury itself, where no sound exists or can exist in the vacuum. Walking back toward the habitat entrance, you decide it is time to enter the structure and experience the interior for the first time. The habitat has been powered and functional for hours now, and the internal systems should have stabilized and created a livable environment inside. Entering the habitat will allow you to remove your helmet and breathe air that is not recycled through your suit. And it will provide a space where you can rest and work in more comfortable conditions than the suit allows. The airlock entrance is clearly marked, and you approach it with anticipation. The airlock is a cylindrical chamber, about 2 meters in diameter and 2 meters deep, large enough to accommodate one person in a spacesuit comfortably, or 2 people closely. The outer door is currently closed, and you press the control panel to initiate the entry sequence. The door slides open sideways, revealing the airlock interior with its white walls and simple design. Stepping inside, you turn to face outward, and then you press the control to close the outer door. The door slides shut with a solid seal, and indicator lights show that the vacuum seal is secure. The airlock begins its pressurization cycle automatically, and you feel nothing through your suit, but you can see the pressure gauge rising as air flows into the chamber from the habitat's stored supply. The pressurization takes about 2 minutes to bring the airlock to the same pressure as the habitat interior, approximately 0.7 atmospheres, which is slightly lower than Earth sea level, but sufficient for comfortable breathing and well within human tolerance. When the pressure equalization is complete, a green light illuminates and the inner door unlocks. Pressing the inner door control opens the door into the habitat's main compartment, and you step through the opening into the interior space. The habitat is lit by LED panels in the ceiling that provide bright white light similar to daylight on Earth, and the contrast with the harsh solar glare outside is immediately noticeable. The temperature inside is comfortable, around 21 degrees Celsius, and the air smells clean with a slight hint of the metallic tang that is common in spacecraft life support systems. The space feels safe and welcoming after hours spent in the hostile environment outside. Closing the inner airlock door behind you, you look around the habitat interior and see that it is arranged efficiently with different areas designated for different functions. The ceiling curves overhead, following the dome shape, and the walls are white fabric material that forms the pressure hull. The floor is covered with a textured, non-slip material that provides secure footing, and the space is well lit from multiple light panels that eliminate shadows. Storage lockers line one wall, work surfaces occupy another area, and sleeping bunks are visible in a third section. The central area is open, providing space to move around without crowding. Reaching up to your helmet, you disengage the locking mechanism and lift the helmet off your head. And for the first time since landing, you breathe air that is not coming through your suit's life support system. The air is slightly cooler than the temperature inside your suit, and it smells artificial, but not unpleasant. Taking a deep breath, you appreciate the freedom of breathing normally, without the slight resistance that the suit's air system creates. Setting your helmet down on a storage shelf, you begin removing the rest of your suit components, starting with the gloves and then working on the torso section. Removing the suit takes about 10 minutes because each piece must be carefully disconnected and stowed properly, and the suit is heavy even in Mercury's reduced gravity. Once you have removed all the suit components and stand in the light undergarment layer, you feel much more mobile and comfortable, and the reduced bulk makes moving around the habitat interior easy. The undergarment is designed to wick moisture and provide cooling, and it is comfortable enough to wear for extended periods. Stowing the suit components in their designated storage locker ensures they will be ready for the next EVA when you need to go outside again. Looking out one of the small windows built into the habitat wall, you see the Mercurian landscape outside, with the regolith, the scattered rocks, the distant crater rim, and the black sky. The window is heavily filtered to block harmful radiation and reduce the solar glare, and the view appears darker than what you saw through your visor, but still clear. Seeing the landscape from inside the protected environment creates a different perspective, and you can appreciate the harsh conditions outside while remaining comfortable inside. The window is small, only about 30 centimeters in diameter, but it provides a connection to the external world. The habitat interior includes a small galley area with food storage and a water dispenser, and you realize you have been working outside for several hours without eating or drinking, beyond the small amount of water available through your suit's drinking tube. Walking to the galley, you retrieve a food package and a drinking container, and you sit at the small fold-down table to eat. The food is similar to spacecraft rations, freeze-dried and reconstituted with water, but it tastes good after the physical exertion of the surface activities. The water is cool and clean, recycled by the habitat's life support system from humidity in the air and other sources. While eating, you check the habitat's computer display to review the status of all systems and the data being collected by the external instruments. The display shows that all systems are functioning normally, with oxygen generation, carbon dioxide removal, temperature control, and power management, all within expected parameters. The scientific instruments are all reporting data, and the seismometer has already detected several small vibrations that might be microquakes or might be thermal expansion effects in the regolith. The magnetometer readings are stable, and the solar wind detector is recording the continuous particle flux from the sun. After finishing the meal and spending time reviewing the system displays, You decide to prepare the habitat for its first night cycle, even though the Mercurian day will continue for many more Earth days before sunset actually occurs. The habitat is designed to operate autonomously when unoccupied, and setting up the automated systems now will ensure that everything functions correctly when you eventually depart and leave the structure to wait for future crews. The preparation involves configuring the power management to optimize battery usage, setting the thermal systems to maintain minimum safe temperatures, and ensuring the data collection continues without interruption. The power management system allows you to designate which systems remain active during low power mode and which can be shut down to conserve energy. The life support systems will reduce their activity when no occupants are present, maintaining only enough air circulation and temperature control to prevent the interior from freezing or overheating. The scientific instruments will continue operating because they are the primary purpose of the campsite, and their data collection must not be interrupted. The communication system will remain active to send data back to Earth and to receive commands from mission control if needed. Configuring these settings through the computer interface takes about 30 minutes, and you test each mode to verify that the transitions happen smoothly and that critical systems remain powered throughout the switching. The battery storage system shows that it can support the reduced power load for approximately 14 Earth days before requiring recharge, which is adequate for the early portions of Mercury's night, when solar power will be unavailable. Additional battery capacity or alternative power sources will be needed for crews who plan to remain active throughout the entire night period. But for now, the system is suitable for the unmanned campsite operations. The thermal management system is particularly important because the temperature extremes on Mercury will stress the habitat structure, and maintaining appropriate interior conditions will preserve the equipment and prevent damage from freezing or overheating. The system includes both active heating and cooling capabilities, with electric heaters for cold conditions and radiators for heat rejection. During the day, the primary challenge is removing excess heat that enters through the walls despite the insulation, while during the night, the challenge is maintaining warmth against the extreme cold outside. The habitat walls are designed with multiple layers that provide both insulation and radiation shielding, and the outer layer is highly reflective to minimize solar heat absorption. The insulation layers trap heat during the cold night and prevent heat from escaping, while during the hot day, they resist heat flow inward. The active thermal systems supplement the passive insulation by pumping heat into or out of the habitat as needed. The system is designed to maintain interior temperature between 15 and 30 degrees Celsius across the full range of external conditions, from minus 170 to plus 430 degrees. Testing the thermal system's response to different conditions shows that it is functioning correctly, and the temperature control maintains the set point accurately despite the extreme external temperature. The system uses relatively little power during moderate conditions, but will consume more energy when external temperatures reach their extremes, at the hottest part of the day or the coldest part of the night. The power budget accounts for this increased consumption, and the solar arrays generate sufficient excess during the day to charge batteries adequately for night operations. The life support system includes the oxygen generation equipment that electrolyzes water to produce oxygen for breathing, and hydrogen that is vented outside or used in other systems. The carbon dioxide removal system uses chemical scrubbers that absorb carbon dioxide from the air and release it outside or store it for later processing. The water recycling system captures humidity from the air and recycles it back into the potable water supply. These systems are similar to those used on spacecraft and space stations, and they allow the habitat to support human occupancy for extended periods without resupply. Checking the consumables inventory shows that the habitat is stocked with enough water, food, and spare parts to support 2 people for approximately 30 Earth days, or 1 person for 60 days. Future missions will bring additional supplies, and eventually the habitat may receive equipment for extracting water from permanently shadowed polar craters or from mineral deposits in the regolith. Self-sufficiency will be important for long-term operations on Mercury, and developing local resource utilization will reduce the mass that must be transported from Earth. The communication system is already operating and maintaining contact with the relay satellite that orbits Mercury and provides a connection to Earth when the habitat is on the far side of the planet, relative to Earth. The relay satellite removes the need for direct line of sight to Earth, and it allows continuous communications regardless of Mercury's rotation. The system transmits data continuously, sending scientific measurements, system status reports, and images back to Earth, where teams analyze the information and send back commands or messages. Checking the communications log shows several messages from Mission Control, congratulating you on the successful campsite establishment and acknowledging receipt of the initial data from the scientific instruments. The messages were sent about 8 minutes before they appeared on your screen, due to the light travel time, and any responses you send will similarly take 8 minutes to reach Earth. The asynchronous nature of the communications is manageable for most purposes, though it would be frustrating during an emergency when immediate assistance might be needed, but real-time communication is impossible. Walking to the sleeping area, you examine the bunks that are built into the habitat wall in a stacked configuration, with 2 bunks on top and 2 below. Each bunk is a small enclosed space with a sliding privacy panel, a light, and ventilation, similar to sleeping quarters on spacecraft or submarines where space is at a premium. The bunks are equipped with sleeping bags that attach to the bunk surface to prevent floating during sleep, though in Mercury's gravity, floating is not a concern, and the bags serve mainly to provide warmth and comfort. Lying down in one of the lower bunks to test the comfort, you find that the sleeping surface is adequately padded and the space feels secure rather than claustrophobic. The reduced gravity makes lying down feel different from on Earth, and you feel lighter against the bunk surface. The bunk is oriented so that your head is toward the center of the habitat and your feet toward the wall, and this arrangement maximizes the efficient use of space. The sleeping bag is comfortable, and you can easily imagine future crews sleeping here after long work shifts on Mercury's surface. Sitting up and leaving the bunk, you walk to the work area where a desk surface folds down from the wall and provides space for using the computer terminal or writing in logbooks. The terminal displays all the habitat systems and scientific instruments, and it can also access the communication system and the stored library of reference materials, procedures, and entertainment. Future crews will spend time here analyzing data, planning activities, and maintaining records of their work. The work area includes storage for samples, with labeled compartments where specimens can be catalogued and secured. The sample storage area is currently empty, except for the rock samples you collected from the crater, and you retrieve those samples from the external storage compartment by cycling through the airlock briefly. Bringing the samples inside allows you to examine them more closely, in better lighting, and you place them in labeled bags with documentation of their collection location and time. The samples will eventually return to Earth with you, but for now, they are stored safely in the habitat where they will be protected from the temperature extremes and radiation exposure outside. Looking around the habitat interior one more time, you appreciate the engineering that created this livable space in one of the solar system's most hostile environments. The white walls, the even lighting, the comfortable temperature, and the breathable air all create an environment where humans can live and work safely despite the deadly conditions just beyond the thin walls. The habitat is small by Earth standards, but it is adequate for its purpose, and it represents a remarkable achievement in making Mercury accessible to human exploration. The time spent inside has been restful, and you have had the opportunity to remove your suit, eat, drink, and experience normal movement without the bulk and restriction of the spacesuit. But there is more work to do outside, and you need to continue collecting samples and conducting observations before the mission timeline requires returning to the lander for departure. Preparing to go outside again means putting the spacesuit back on, and you begin the process of dressing in the multiple layers and components that will protect you in the vacuum and temperature extremes. Putting on the suit takes about the same amount of time as removing it did, and you work methodically through each component to ensure everything is properly connected and sealed. The undergarment is already being worn, so you start with the lower torso assembly and work upward through the hard upper torso, the arms, the gloves, and finally the helmet. Each connection must click securely and show green indicators before moving to the next step, and you verify each seal carefully. Once the suit is completely assembled, you activate the life support systems and check that all displays show normal operation. Moving to the airlock, you enter the chamber and close the inner door, and then you begin the depressurization sequence that will remove air from the airlock and prepare for opening the outer door. The pressure drops quickly, and your suit inflates slightly as the internal pressure exceeds the external pressure. When the airlock reaches vacuum, the outer door unlocks, and you open it to step back out onto Mercury's surface. The transition from the comfortable habitat interior to the harsh external environment is immediate, and your suit systems adjust to the temperature and radiation conditions outside. Stepping out of the airlock onto the regolith, you see that nothing has changed during the time you spent inside, and the landscape appears exactly as it did before. The sun remains in the same position because its motion across the sky is imperceptible over the hour or so you were inside, and the shadows fall in the same directions. Your boot prints from earlier are still visible and undisturbed, and the scientific instruments stand in their positions surrounding the habitat. The external environment is static and unchanging on human timescales, and this constancy is one of Mercury's defining characteristics. With the habitat confirmed as functional and the scientific instruments collecting data, the remaining major task is to ensure the campsite is fully prepared for the eventual transition to unoccupied operations and to complete the sample collection that will provide material for detailed analysis on Earth. Walking away from the habitat toward an area to the west that you have not yet explored, you set out to collect additional rock and regolith samples from different locations to provide a more representative collection of Mercury's surface materials. The sample collection will help scientists understand the composition and geological history of this region. The terrain to the west shows similar characteristics to the areas you have already crossed, with scattered rocks of various sizes resting on the regolith surface. Some rocks are angular and fresh-looking, while others appear more weathered and rounded by the constant bombardment of micrometeorites over millions of years. The weathering process on airless bodies is different from Earth because there is no chemical weathering from water or atmosphere, and instead, the surface changes come from physical impacts and from the slight erosion caused by solar wind and radiation. Selecting a rock that appears different in color from the samples already collected, you use your sampling hammer to break off several pieces, and you place them in a new collection bag with appropriate labeling. This rock has a reddish-brown tint that suggests different iron content or oxidation state compared to the gray samples from the crater. Mercury's surface is known to contain relatively high iron content compared to other rocky bodies, and this iron-rich composition is one of the clues to Mercury's formation history and the processes that created such a dense planet. Walking farther from the habitat, you find an area where the regolith appears darker than average, and you collect samples of this dark material using a scoop designed to gather fine powder. The dark coloring might indicate higher concentrations of certain minerals or different space weathering effects, and analysis will reveal the cause. The regolith on Mercury is created by billions of years of impacts that have pulverized the surface rock into progressively finer particles, and the composition reflects both the original bedrock and the materials added by impactors from asteroids and comets. Continuing the sample collection walk, you move across the terrain and stop periodically to collect specimens that appear visually distinct or come from different geological settings. Some samples come from areas near small craters, others from the general plains between craters, and some from regions where bedrock appears to be exposed through thin regolith cover. Each sample is documented with its location recorded by the suit's navigation system, and notes are made about the surrounding context and any features that make the sample interesting. After about an hour of walking and collecting samples, you have gathered approximately 20 different specimens that represent the variety of materials visible in the campsite region. The collection bags are secured to your suit's equipment belt, and the samples add noticeable weight even in the reduced gravity. Carrying the samples back toward the habitat, you think about the analysis that will be performed on these materials and the information they will provide about Mercury's composition, age, and history. Each rock tells a story that extends back billions of years to the planet's formation and the early solar system. Reaching the habitat, you store the new samples in the external storage compartment, where they will be kept until transfer to the lander for return to Earth. The samples represent hours of work and careful selection, and they will be valuable to researchers studying Mercury's geology. The sample collection is one of the most important scientific objectives of the mission, and the variety of materials gathered will allow comprehensive analysis of the surface composition in this region. Walking slowly around the campsite perimeter, you conduct a final inspection of all the systems and equipment to ensure everything is functioning correctly and securely positioned. The habitat dome appears structurally sound, with no visible damage or stress, and the solar arrays are generating power steadily, as shown by the status display. The scientific instruments are all reporting data, and their cables are properly secured to prevent tripping hazards or damage from thermal expansion. The marker flags that indicate various locations are visible and appropriately placed. The rover sits parked near the habitat, and you check its systems to verify that it is ready for future use if needed. The battery charge is at 83%, which is acceptable, and all mechanical systems appear functional. The rover will remain at the campsite as a resource for future crews, and it will be protected from the temperature extremes by a thermal cover that can be deployed over it during unoccupied periods. For now, the rover remains uncovered because the mission is not yet complete, and it may be needed for additional tasks. Looking toward the lander in the distance, you think about the departure that will eventually come, and the return to orbit where the spacecraft waits to carry you back toward Earth. The mission timeline allows for another full day of surface operations before departure is required, and you plan to use that time for additional exploration and for preparing the campsite for autonomous operation. The work has gone well so far, and all major objectives have been achieved, but there is always more to observe and learn from this remarkable world. The sun continues to shine in the black sky, and its position has not changed noticeably since you landed despite the hours that have passed. The slow rotation of Mercury creates this effect, where time seems almost frozen, and the sun hangs in the same location day after day, as Mercury turns beneath it at a pace that is imperceptible on human timescales. The constancy is both fascinating and slightly unsettling, because it contradicts the Earth-trained expectation that the sun should move across the sky over the course of hours. Standing still and looking at the landscape around you, you try to absorb the experience of being on Mercury and to commit the details to memory. The grey regolith, the black sky, the brilliant sun, the sharp shadows, the close horizon, the absolute silence, the sense of standing on ancient ground that has been unchanged for billions of years. All these elements combine to create an experience that is unique and profound. You are one of the first humans to stand on this world, and the experience will stay with you for the rest of your life. The boot prints you have made across the campsite area will remain visible for an enormously long time, and future crews will see them and know that someone was here before them. The prints are a kind of monument to human exploration, and they mark the beginning of human presence on Mercury. The habitat, the instruments, the markers, and the prints all contribute to creating a place where humans have worked and established a foothold on the innermost planet. Walking back to the habitat's airlock, you decide to go inside for a rest period before continuing with additional surface activities. The work has been physically demanding despite the reduced gravity, and taking time to rest and hydrate will ensure you remain capable of performing the remaining tasks safely. The airlock cycle proceeds as before, and you enter the habitat interior, where the comfortable environment welcomes you again. Removing the helmet and gloves allows you to drink water and eat a snack, and the break is refreshing. Sitting at the workstation, you review the data that has been collected by the instruments during the time you were outside, and you see that the seismometer has recorded several small events that appear to be genuine Mercury quakes rather than thermal noise. The magnetometer readings show subtle variations that might indicate changes in the solar wind or local magnetic anomalies in the crust. The particle detector continues to record the steady flux of solar wind particles, and the thermal station shows the expected temperature variations. The communications system indicates new messages from mission control, and you read through them on the display screen. The messages include updates on the mission timeline, acknowledgement of your sample collection activities, and some technical questions about specific instrument readings. You compose responses to the questions and queue them for transmission, knowing they will take 8 minutes to reach Earth. The message exchange is slow but functional, and it provides a connection to the support teams who are monitoring the mission. Looking out the small window at the landscape outside, you see the regolith glowing in the harsh sunlight and the black sky beyond. The view is always the same because nothing moves or changes on Mercury's surface, except on geological timescales. The static quality is both peaceful and alien, and it creates a meditative atmosphere that encourages reflection. You think about the significance of what has been accomplished here and what it means for the future of human exploration. The campsite is complete and operational, ready to serve as a base for future missions to Mercury. The habitat provides shelter and life support. The scientific instruments provide data collection capabilities, and the supplies stored here will support future crews. The work you have done over the past hours has established humanity's first permanent presence on the planet closest to the Sun, and this achievement represents a milestone in space exploration. The success of this mission will pave the way for more ambitious activities on Mercury and will contribute to understanding this small but important world. After resting inside the habitat for about an hour, you prepare for what will likely be the final extended EVA of this mission. The remaining tasks include a last survey of the campsite area to ensure everything is properly secured and configured for autonomous operation, collecting a few final samples from locations of particular interest, and then beginning the preparations for departure. The mission has been successful beyond expectations, and the campsite stands ready to support future crews who will arrive to continue the exploration and research. Suiting up again and cycling through the airlock, you emerge onto Mercury's surface for what might be the last time during this mission. The familiar landscape greets you unchanged, and you walk slowly toward the area north of the campsite, where a small ridge runs across the terrain. The ridge might provide an elevated viewpoint for taking final photographs of the campsite and the surrounding area, and it might also reveal interesting geological features worth documenting. Climbing the gentle slope of the ridge takes only a few minutes, and reaching the crest provides a view that extends farther than what you can see from the lower campsite area. The habitat is visible as a white dome with solar arrays extending from its sides, and the scientific instruments appear as small shapes scattered around the central structure. The lander stands in the distance, and the paths of boot prints and rover tracks create a network of lines across the grey surface, showing the routes travelled during the mission. Taking photographs from this elevated position documents the campsite from a perspective that shows how it relates to the surrounding terrain, and the images will be valuable for mission reports and for planning future activities. The crater that you explored earlier is visible to the east, and the undulating terrain extends in all directions to the close horizon. The view encompasses perhaps 2 square kilometers of Mercury's surface, a tiny fraction of the planet's total area, but the region that has become familiar through careful exploration. Descending from the ridge, you walk toward an area that shows what appears to be bedrock exposed through thin regolith cover, and you want to collect a sample of the bedrock to complement the loose rock and regolith samples already gathered. Reaching the exposed area, you see that the bedrock is fractured and broken into angular pieces, and the fractures run in multiple directions, creating a blocky texture. Using your sampling hammer, you carefully break off a piece of the bedrock, and the fragment shows the internal structure of the rock, with a fine-grained texture and uniform color. The bedrock sample is placed in a final collection bag with appropriate documentation, and this completes the sample collection objectives for the mission. The variety of materials gathered includes regolith from multiple locations, loose rocks of different types and colors, crater samples with impact melted glass coatings, and now, bedrock from an exposed outcrop. The collection represents the geological diversity present in this region, and analysis will provide insights into Mercury's composition and history. Walking back toward the campsite, you think about the tasks that remain before departure can begin. The habitat must be configured for unmanned operation, with all systems set to autonomous mode, and the interior secured against the long period of vacancy before the next crew arrives. The scientific instruments are already operating autonomously and will continue collecting data throughout the day and night cycles. The rover should be covered with its thermal blanket to protect it from temperature extremes, and all loose equipment should be stowed or secured. Returning to the habitat, you begin the final preparations by configuring the computer systems for autonomous operation and setting the power management to reduce consumption during vacant periods. The life support will maintain minimum air pressure and temperature control to prevent the interior from degrading, but active environmental control will be reduced since no occupants will be present. The thermal system will protect the structure and equipment from the temperature extremes, and the battery system will provide power during the night until solar generation resumes with the next sunrise weeks from now. The communication system is set to continue transmitting data to Earth and to listen for commands from mission control. And the system will wake the habitat computer from low power mode if important messages arrive. The data from the scientific instruments will be stored locally and transmitted regularly to ensure that no information is lost, even if communications are interrupted temporarily. The system is designed to operate reliably for months or even years without human intervention, though periodic maintenance will be needed eventually. Securing the interior involves stowing all loose items, closing storage compartments, and ensuring that nothing is left in a position where temperature changes or mechanical stress might cause damage. The sample collection bags are gathered together and placed in a transport container that will be carried to the lander for return to orbit. The suits and equipment are stored in their designated lockers, and the work surfaces are cleared and locked in their folded positions. The habitat interior is left clean and organized, ready for the next crew to arrive and reactivate the systems. Taking a last look around the habitat interior, you feel a sense of accomplishment and also a touch of sadness that the mission is ending. The habitat has been a reliable shelter and workspace during the time on Mercury's surface, and leaving it feels like leaving a home even though you have been here only a short time. Future crews will make this space their home for longer periods, and they will add their own touches and improvements to the basic structure established during this first mission. Exiting through the airlock for the final time, you carry the sample container and walk toward the lander across the familiar terrain. The distance of 400 meters is covered easily, and reaching the lander feels like returning to another kind of home, the spacecraft that brought you here and will carry you back to orbit. The lander stands as you left it, and the cargo bay is still open, with the ramp extended to the ground. Loading the sample container into the lander's secure storage compartment ensures the precious specimens will be protected during the ascent to orbit and the journey back to Earth. The samples represent the scientific return from the mission, and they will be studied by researchers for years to extract every bit of information about Mercury's composition and history. Securing the container and closing the storage compartment completes that task, and you turn to take one last look at the campsite, visible in the distance. The habitat dome stands white against the grey regolith, and the solar arrays catch the sunlight and gleam with reflected brilliance. The scientific instruments are barely visible at this distance, but you know they are there, surrounding the habitat and collecting data continuously. The orange marker flags are small bright points that mark significant locations, and the boot prints and rover tracks create faint lines across the surface. The campsite looks small and fragile against the vast empty landscape, but it represents a permanent human presence on this ancient world. Walking slowly around the lander, you inspect the landing legs and the engine nozzles to verify that everything appears ready for the ascent. The legs show some dust accumulation from the landing, but no damage, and the engines are clear and ready to fire. The ascent fuel is loaded, and the systems are showing green status, confirming that the lander is ready for departure when the mission timeline requires. The departure will come soon, within the next few hours according to the schedule, and you will lift off from Mercury's surface and return to the orbiting spacecraft. Climbing the ladder to enter the lander through the hatch, you pause on the top rung and turn to look one more time at the landscape you are about to leave. The grey regolith extends to the horizon in all directions. The black sky holds the brilliant sun and the scattered stars, and the campsite stands in the distance as proof that humans were here. The boot prints you made during the first steps on Mercury remain visible near the lander, and they will remain for millions of years as a monument to this first mission. Entering the lander and closing the hatch behind you seals you inside the spacecraft, and the familiar interior is a sharp contrast to the alien landscape outside. Taking your position in the pilot seat, you begin the pre-launch checklist that will prepare all systems for the ascent. The engines will need to fire for approximately 2 minutes to lift the lander off the surface and accelerate to the velocity needed to reach orbit. And the ascent profile has been planned carefully to ensure efficient use of the limited fuel supply. The countdown progresses through each checkpoint, and all systems respond correctly to the pre-launch sequence. The communications system sends a final transmission to mission control, informing them that departure is imminent, and the message will take 8 minutes to reach Earth, where teams will be monitoring the ascent data. The scientific instruments at the campsite will detect the vibration from the lander's engines when they fire, and that will be their first recorded Mercury quake, a human-caused event rather than a natural one. The engines ignite at the scheduled moment, and the lander lifts gently off the surface as the thrust builds to counter Mercury's gravity. The acceleration is mild at first, but increases as the engines reach full power, and the surface drops away below as the lander climbs into the black sky. Looking out the window, you see the campsite growing smaller as altitude increases. The white habitat dome and the solar arrays becoming tiny against the grey regolith, and then disappearing from view as the lander rises higher and farther downrange. The ascent continues smoothly, and Mercury's surface curves away below as the lander climbs toward orbital altitude. The horizon extends farther as altitude increases, and more of the planet's surface becomes visible in a widening circle. The black sky remains black because there is no atmosphere to create color, and the stars shine steadily overhead without change. The engines burn for the calculated duration, and then they shut down as the lander reaches orbital velocity, and the sudden silence after the engine noise is striking. Coasting in orbit now, the lander follows an elliptical path that will bring it to rendezvous with the orbiting spacecraft in a few hours. Looking down at Mercury through the window, you see the planet's grey surface passing below, and you search for the campsite location, but cannot identify it from this altitude and angle. The campsite is there somewhere on the surface, the habitat and instruments continuing their work autonomously, waiting for the next crew to arrive and reactivate the systems and continue the exploration. The mission is complete, and the objectives have been achieved. Humanity's first campsite on Mercury has been established, equipped, and left operational for future use. The surface has been explored, samples have been collected, and scientific instruments are gathering data that will flow to Earth for analysis. The success of this mission opens the way for more ambitious activities on Mercury, and the campsite will serve as a foundation for expanding human presence on the innermost planet. The work was challenging but rewarding, and standing on another world has provided an experience and perspective that will last a lifetime. Looking at Mercury receding below as the lander moves along its orbit, you think about the planet as it truly is, an ancient world of rock and iron orbiting close to the sun, its surface marked by billions of years of impacts, its interior still warm enough to generate a weak magnetic field, its environment extreme but accessible to human exploration with proper technology. The campsite on the surface represents a beginning, not an ending, and future missions will build on this foundation to create a lasting human presence on the planet closest to the sun. The journey continues, and Mercury waits patiently for those who will follow.